everybody, it's Boss Bill Radio. This is your second podcast of the year for 2018. I am Griff and Hoffmann, and with me is Geoff Brewer.
Two. I think this might even be number 3. Could be 4.
1.5 times.
We're gonna up that average in the latter half of the year here.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to hit a lot more podcasts now that we got rid of that Roseanne-esque yoke around our shoulders, a la Jamie. Always with the racism and Trumpisms.
So
Now, he's doing fancy, important doctor stuff, so we'll probably be taking a little hiatus here for a few weeks at least, which should mean nobody will notice
previous
listening.
Host of this show, he's leaving to sell drugs.
Oh, no.
Or I guess he doesn't sell them. He sells the rights to use them.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like video games in which you're not buying the game, you're buying the right to use it.
Topical.
That's what we do on the show. We talk about video games.
Speaking of, you want to dive in and start talking about what's on your mind these days, Griff?
Yeah, good question. Thank you for that setup. Bump set spike. So the current landscape, we're in the middle, we're in the dead heat of summer, and that means almost no video game news
on that,
really
that
happening.
An E3 nugget, just slowly digesting it.
Yeah. Yep, that E3 jerky, just sun-baked and leathery.
Just stuck in all your teeth.
I actually
also
did have
had
some beef jerky
earlier
today. What?
It was beef.
Was
it was
beef?
Peppercorn. It was pink peppercorn, and because it was pink peppercorn, it was breast cancer jerky. I hope it came from the cow's boob. What kind of jerky did you have? Like a real American.
Beef. I don't know what from part of the cow.
It came from the part of the cow that was thrown out when they made all the other meat.
Actually, no, it's good. It's the Hoffmann family jerky. So my dad insists that it's actually like muscle jerky. So good cuts of meat.
Your family makes jerky?
The family's a bunch of ranchers.
I know about that piece. I guess for some reason the jerky to me is like it blows my mind.
So when you bring a cow to butcher, you can ask like how you want the meats cut up, and one of the things my dad does every year is have a portion set aside for jerky and beef sticks and all your typical gas station fixins. So yeah, this is very, very good, like strip muscle jerky, very lean, super smoky. It's delicious.
But how does it compare to Jack Link's? That one comes from a Sasquatch or something.
The forbidden fruit.
That's cool. I had no idea that he was involved in such boutique farm products, but I like it. I'm into it.
Yeah, he doesn't do the jerkin or the butchering.
I do the jerkin.
Like that's the local guy, but it is our cows. Yes, of course you do.
Oh, wow.
Speaking of jerkin, let's talk about next generation systems, because this year at E3, that was probably the most notable absence of any kind of discussion around, hey, what's happening
it was like
for
the
the next
specter
go-round.
that was hanging over.
And
E3,
I just
like it was like the thing that was said but unsaid.
Yes and no, but it wasn't like previous years where it's like, all right, we know what's coming. Like there's the spec, spoilers and leaks and hardware manufacturing, SKUs or production stuff that's like leaking into the wild. No, this was just more like, hey, we don't really know either. It's kind of the vibe that I got.
You think so? I mean, I guess so, yeah. I guess what I don't know is, we'll talk about all this stuff, but there are a lot of questions that you're right, were unanswered. Like, how many SKUs are we going to see at launch? Will there be like a pro version out the gate?
I think the way to start it off with is, going back to the E3 press conferences, there was little to almost no talk about the success of hardware sales or specs or anything like that. Microsoft didn't get up on stage and say, hey, the One X, performed so well thanks to its beefy hardware, and PlayStation didn't come up and talk, or Sony didn't talk about how the Pro was exceeding production demands or anything like that. There was zero talk about it.
Yeah, it's weird. I think it's maybe again kind of the culmination of something that's been going on for a while. Like, remember when NPD stopped reporting numbers?
Yes.
Yeah, I wonder if this is like, I wonder if this is somehow strategic on their part to just ditch that stuff. I don't know why, but you are right. That wasn't there at all, and it is a little weird.
That's the horse's mouth. Is not NPD. It's the actual companies. If they were to say, "Hey, we sold through all these units," like that, there you'd finally get your numbers.
Well, that's what Sony used to do. They'd be like, "Hey, 20 million sold through, blah blah blah, sold through," but there was no sold through update this time.
Right. Unless what you're saying, Geoff, is they don't know either.
No, I think they know. I would hope they know.
So, I just wanted
Microsoft might not know.
Yeah, it's possible.
I think they lump the Xbox in with their Surface division or something now. It's like they just hide it as much as they can.
Well, I think that was again, once again, the Giant Bomb, interviews that kind of happened towards the actual kickoff time of the E3 extravaganza. One of them this year was a one-on-one with Jeff Gertzman and Phil Spencer, just kind of rapping about current state of games, future state of games, and they're always the best, always, because I really think that Phil is a genuinely good dude in the industry, and will be transparent in some of the things that he says, and Jeff asks some good hard-hitting questions, and he never really backs away from them, and one of them was kind of like, hey, you mentioned streaming, like there's no talk about future consoles, like what's going on with Microsoft? Do you guys feel like you're still behind, in second place or whatever? And his answers were fascinating, and I'll just recap them here quick. And basically, his answer was, the future is not necessarily a new console, but more of a service. And I know we joked about this and talked about it in our previous podcast summarizing stuff, but he kind of did confirm it, saying like the ideal state of a Microsoft Xbox platform would be something that you could play on an iPhone, on a computer, on a console, whatever you have at your hands. Just kind of looking at the current the current landscape and saying like, mobile games outperform any other, game on the marketplace. So why would we not try and get into that? And I think we saw that made manifest via the Bethesda press conference where they released that point-and-click derpy piece of crap.
Fallout Shelter?
No, the other one.
Elder Scrolls Blades?
Yeah.
Yeah, that looks bad. I don't know.
But his point was essentially like, well, we want to get games into people's hands and have them in our ecosystem and playing things on whatever they want to play. And that, to me, that sounds a lot more exciting than somebody coming off and rattling off a list of specs that is going to not mean anything to me. And then also the people that it means thing to, they will dissect them and then state how inferior they will be in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, I guess, and like I'm thinking as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about like Fortnite showing that like you can have experiences that you're used to on PCs and consoles on mobile devices, and that scales in the sense that people are playing that. Like people are playing Fortnite on their iPhone,
right?
Like, God knows how, but they're doing it. Like,
I've seen it happen. I don't get it.
Yeah, they're making bank, and like. I guess my concern, with scaling is like, how do they build? So, like, let's say that we scale, Xbox to lots of different platforms. I mean, there needs to be a way. I worry about devaluation. I guess I worry about like if that product is available on mobile and that's their target, like, how are they going to make money off that unless everything is free to play? I don't know. I guess there's a lot of questions.
yeah, absolutely. And I think
I'm sure they're thinking about it.
There's a lot of credence put towards the subscription model, the established Netflix model, and those type of things that are succeeding extremely well right now in the current, non-video game landscape.
Yeah, and I guess those models haven't necessarily killed anything. In fact, in many ways, they've enabled a lot of unique content. So it's like I'm sort of two minds. It's like, yeah, we've definitely seen the rise of subscription models, and in the near term, as a super fan, they just kind of suck. But in the long term, maybe they will enable like a Netflix like feature where like you just get cool shit all the time of like big and small.
Sure. And I mean, as a person who has been using a subscription model to get games for the last, 10 years, I would be happy to allocate those funds towards the companies that were, more directly connected with the products that were coming out from them, and less of the, kind of roundabout blockbuster style relationship. So I'm all for it.
Yeah, I guess that's true. And I think as we see the demise of physical games, I think that's going to trigger, a real shift. GameStop, I think there was recent news that it's in really terrible shape. They're going to start selling comics now. I mean, finally, that fucking hellhole is doing poorly. But I think that could really signal a sea change in the industry and allow them to explore a lot of novel methods of distribution that are kind of in their infancy now.
When was the last time you were in a GameStop?
So I went there like a week or two ago.
Wow.
No. I hadn't. That was like me breaking my GameStop fast. Like I had not been to GameStop maybe in a year.
Would you have to get some Funko Pops or something?
No, I was looking for some Five Nights at Freddy's merch. I couldn't find it.
Oh man. Some used amiibos?
It's actually a great story. So I was trying to pick up a game, which I'll talk about later, which isn't available at regular retailers because it's pretty niche. And they only had the cartridge which they had opened and slapped a sticker onto. So I just left.
That old gem, yeah.
Yep, I just left.
Oh, it's new.
It's new if I've opened it and profaned the packaging. So I was like, fuck you, I'm out.
Right? You send that in to get graded, and you just write a little note that says, yeah, this is brand new, minted box, but GameStop opened it.
It's actually an option you can check on Amazon when you're trading it in. New except GameStop employee.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it is interesting. I mean, it certainly seems like a lot of companies are sort of tipping their hat to streaming and exploring putting their properties on other platforms. So we're lurching in that direction, but
sure.
But you like it. You're into it.
I am more excited about this than I am about any of the previous kind of like foreboding future console, future state of games discussions that have happened before. Is gaming dead? The Ouya is the going to be the bright shining beacon on the horizon.
There's still time.
How can we make these systems more powerful to make them competitive with PCs? Like, I feel like this is the smart move to make, where it's like, okay, like, yeah, Sony will put out another console, but it might not be the grandiose focus of Sony. I'm just saying Sony just because it's the one that hasn't said anything, but yeah. To be able to say, like, here is the Sony service versus here's the Sony platform, and platform, being console, I think is a more interesting future to look into, just because, it's more accessibility to games than, and therefore more games. That's what I'm very excited about.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. And it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out and where gamers land, where people land in terms of, like, do they play it on, like, the bespoke hardware, or do they want to play it on their iPhone? Like, what is... Because I think a lot of the thinking going into this generation was, like, there isn't really a space for dedicated hardware anymore. And it seems like in all of these plans, there's, like, kind of the little asterisk, like, there will be dedicated hardware, but also the platform. So it'll be interesting to watch kind of how those two things grow together. And, I think ultimately, there's no point probably in naysaying right now, because who the F knows what's going to happen. But yeah, you're right. It is interesting. I mean, it's certainly, accessibility is always good. So we'll see how that pans out.
Yeah. I know usually our discussions around next generation and future of games are like, dark and abysmal and hellscape.
I'm avoiding it.
Wastelands. Like, I think this is a more realistic look at the future. So therefore, I'm more excited about it, just because it seems like, hey, maybe the future isn't a specific console. Maybe it is something more than that. And again, I'm always about the games, not necessarily about where they're coming from.
Sure.
So it speaks to me specifically. So that's why I just want to chat about that as my hot take.
That's a good hot take.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got no hot takes right now, except the only minor hot take I have is just something more of a thing that's going on in my life. How come there is no way, and this maybe even speaks to the whole streaming catalog. So I've been playing a ton of games on Switch, right? I've been playing, everything's on Switch because that's just what I want to play on right now. Mm-hmm. How come I can't play old games on a portable platform? How come I can't pull out an iPhone and officially play games on it? Or like a device that has controls on it? Like,
well, first of all, you shouldn't be playing on an iPhone. Secondly, you just sent me an image that the Vita got hacked again. So
exactly, but why do I have to do I did it and it wasn't that bad, and I'm gonna put RetroArch on it and try to play my games, which I have backed up from their original. I have one of those ROM dumps. I just put the cartridge. Okay, anyway, so I'm gonna be playing on there. But how come there's no official platform for that? Why is this taking so goddamn
I don't think
long?
I need to tell you this, Geoff, but the answer is keep every old system that you have and just play the old discs on the old system or cartridges on the old system.
I'm sure Jessica will not be even remotely mad about that.
Oh, that's why God made boxes and
Griffin,
storage units.
Okay, I need to have room for my amiibo collection. All 50 unopened boxes. Where am I going to put my consoles? No, I don't know. I don't have any hot takes, but I will
take out a second mortgage, build build a shrine behind your house.
I let my CRT go, so I think I'm out of the game when it comes to retro preservation.
You've done it.
Those things are heavy, man. I live in a condo. Anyway.
Excuses.
So that bums me out. But hey, there's some Vita hacking going on. It's pretty cool. I'm trying it out. I'll probably talk about it the next time we podcast when I break my Vita.
Okay.
Or just complain about how it's somehow not perfect and just be an asshole about it. But otherwise, I just want to talk games.
Yeah, let's talk about some games. Geoff, you're champion at BBR, so why don't you go ahead and talk about one of the games you've been digging into?
Out. Sure. So, like I said, I've been leaning pretty hard into Switch. Part of that is because I moved my PS4 upstairs during the wintertime, and now upstairs is a sweltering hellscape that I will never enter.
Oh, you brought your very expensive space heater upstairs, you mean?
Exactly. And I could just take it downstairs, but that would require me to unhook some cables, and that's the line.
And shutting the device off.
Yes, there's a lot to do. I don't want to rebuild that
Who
database.
does that?
So, and plus, if it was wintertime in God of War, I'm sure I would just be jealous. So, I mean, I can never play that game.
True.
So instead, I've been playing a lot of Switch games, and in the wake of E3, there's actually... So I've kind of been I've been searching for a long time, but I discovered a whole bunch of stuff that just came out in the past few weeks that I've really enjoyed. The first of which... Well, these are all things that have come out on previous platforms before, but I feel like they, in many ways, have found their home on Switch. So the first is Hollow Knight. Are you familiar with Hollow Knight, Griff?
I've only seen screenshots. I know it's like a Metroidvania. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, so it's a Metroidvania, of which, of course, there are a gazillion of them right now. That genre's had a bit of a renaissance.
Metroidvania with an art style.
With an art style. And, I'll confess that going into this, I was a little kind of fatigued with modern Metroidvanias. I think a lot of them... I have a certain je ne sais quoi that I'm looking for when I play a Metroidvania. The last one I really enjoyed was Axiom Verge, which I think you also really liked.
I did, yeah.
And I think I liked it just because it had... I'm looking for a very particular atmosphere, I think, in my Metroidvanias. You can do them a lot of different ways, but I like a kind of dark and foreboding sense of mystery and kind of a little bit of dread. I just feel like that is a really critical piece for me to look beyond the fact that that genre has some weaknesses. There's a lot of reused assets and things like that.
Yeah, you want it to be not only a Metroidvania in play mechanics, but in theme.
Feel.
Yeah,
because I think if it's not, it just feels it's kind of a slog. It's kind of rote to just go through and fill in a map.
Yeah, and you remember that part in Banjo-Kazooie when you couldn't turn into the bat and fly through the grates?
I never played Banjo-Kazooie because I don't hate myself.
Yeah, exactly. You remember in that cute, shitty platformer where you couldn't get that extra jiggy because it was behind this grated door and you couldn't turn into mist?
You're talking about turning into mist. That's Symphony of the Night. I think you used that maybe 2 times on the whole map.
Yep. That's the
best
joke.
Game ever made. Yeah. Yeah, no, Symphony of the Night is a game. It's not perfect, but that's a whole other story. I like it, but it's not perfect. But anyway, so back to Hollow Knight. So Hollow Knight is like the first Metroidvania I played in a long time that actually captures that feel. It helps that it's tough, for one. It's not insanely tough, but it's tough. Also, there's a cat scraping the litter box.
Am I able to play as a white man?
You're able to play as the whitest bug man. It's very white. It's really tough. It's got this kind of ambiance and kind of air of mystery. The lore is very inscrutable. When it came out, it drew a lot of comparisons to Dark Souls.
Oh, there it is.
People were like, giving these glowing reviews, being like, "Oh, it's the Dark Souls of Metroidvanias," and
Gross.
Of course, hearing that, I was like, "That's disgusting. I hate it." And I also watched a video of it, and there's like a soul reclamation mechanic, like where you die and you have to go get your souls back, and I'm like, "Oh shit! Like this is just totally cribbing from like Baby's first Dark Souls ripoff."
Sure, but that may not be bad.
But it's not, and I think having played the game, I think the comparisons are actually deserved, and it's really interesting because Dark Souls to me feels more like what I want out of a Metroidvania than like games that advertise themselves as Metroidvanias, like especially the first Dark Souls, because that's a game where you like explore an interconnected environment and find keys that allow you to make the world connect in interesting ways. And that's what I feel like you get in Hollow Knight. Like it has that upgrade path that comes with a lot of games that style themselves after Metroid, or like double jumps and floats and dashes and stuff.
Triple jumps, quadruple jumps, ice beams.
I think you peak at a double jump. But where it kind of sets itself apart in terms of the world and navigation, and where it actually reminds me of Dark Souls in a meaningful way, not just kind of the soul mechanic way, is that it has that same sense of like finding an area that you feel like you're not supposed to know about, like hitting a wall, like randomly hitting a wall while you're exploring, and the wall is like a little shaky, and then you hit it some more, and suddenly you're in this weird beehive that you don't ever have to go to in the main story, and is like never signposted in any other way. And the game is full of those moments of like just finding weird, cool shit, which like add to the lore, build out the world, but are totally unnecessary. And it's kind of like it's on you. It's incumbent upon you to sort of care about the world enough to try to find this stuff. And you might get like a small hint, like, oh, there's an object over there that I can't find, and I don't know why. And it's like, oh, in trying to find that object, suddenly I'm in a huge new world.
Cool. Okay, so it's not like your Axiom Verge or like an older Metroid where you're just literally like humping every wall trying to see if it budges.
No, there's like one area which is like pretty well hidden, and I got very lucky to discover. But most of the areas that are like this are in some way signposted. Like there'll be a collectible that is marked on your map, and you're like, how the hell do I get that? And then in trying to find it, you like revisit the area. You're like, I don't understand this. You keep coming back because the story demands it, and then finally you like see like, oh my god, if I just go in the water here, I can go under this wall, and then I'm in a whole new place. It's cool. It's very cool, and it definitely straddles that line.
Oh, so it's like Frog Fractions.
It's not like Frog Fractions.
Oh, okay.
Because the game doesn't suddenly become a new game.
Because it's not math. I get it.
It's not math.
I get it.
It's not math. Yeah, no, and there's no frogs.
Okay, totally different.
Are there frogs in Frog Fractions?
Yeah, you're a frog.
It starts with the frogs. It's been a while. But that's cool. And the other way in which it's meaningfully like Dark Souls is the bosses. And it's not just that the bosses are hard. It's that the bosses are plentiful. The bosses are like showpieces. The bosses build the world. And they're also tough and pattern-based. And so I think it actually succeeds in being like Dark Souls in a way that isn't stupid.
Nice. Okay, I get you.
Yeah. Or not stupid, but in a way that isn't just like
cloying,
totally
like, hey, we want to be like Dark Souls.
Exactly. Like it's there are decisions that I made that you could argue are like, oh, we're just riding the latest fad, but the whole of the game is a loving, well-crafted homage that also stands on its own two legs. It doesn't really require you to have read the source material, so to speak. Like this is a game that you can enjoy on its own. It's chock full of secrets. It's super long. It's like the first Metroidvania I'm aware of that isn't intended to be completed in under 2 hours because for some reason people have a huge fetish for that. That's like the one thing they took away. They're like, well, you have to be able to beat it in under 2 hours. This is like a big game. It took me
I'm
like
30
40
to 40 years old, and I remember this game from my youth, and I want to play it now, but I only got 2 hours to play it.
I just want to see what's under that helmet, man.
I want to see the naked lady under that bone skeleton.
There's none of the naked lady, which is good. It's got bugs, and they're all cool. It's just a cool game. There's lots of cool lore going on. There's like secret endings, secret passageways, secret bosses, secret everything. It's super cool. I highly recommend it. And Switch is a wonderful platform to play it on.
Nice.
So yeah, it's real good. It's probably going on my best of the year list. Although maybe you could argue it's not a 2018 game.
Ooh. One of my just superficial feels from what I've seen of that game is that it reminds me of the type of game that would appeal to you, Geoff, and other people that really liked Binding of Isaac. Like,
because it's hard?
Because it one, there's some, corollaries with the art style. Two, it does appear to have this kind of like difficulty level that is engaging and maybe not demanding, but not for your casual babby.
It's not your father's Metroidvania.
And then three, like, I don't know, there's just, I guess I already said art style, but there's also just something that's kind of like grungy about it too. It
is grungy, and it's
grungy.
Well, I think it's grungy in a way that feels curated. Like it is grungy intentionally in places. I don't know. You got to play it because I watched video of it and I was like, this looks all right. But then I played it and I gave it like a couple hours and I was like, this is really, really good.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll get it on the Switch and I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, I think you'll have fun with it. It'll probably keep you going for quite a while. I imagine you'll be the kind of person to go to and from it, but it's a really cool game, and it's a fun world to be lost in.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. But yeah, do you want to talk about something that you checked out?
I do, but first off, I need to take a break.
All right.
Yeah.
That cheese in a can, man, that'll get you.
It will. Out like it comes in.
All right, we'll be right back.
All right, well, speaking of biological functions, I played Detroit Hunan Buffet. I mean, Become Human.
Oh, the Hunan. I didn't even get it.
Yeah.
Hold on, before you start, were there any Asian people in it, and were they stereotypical?
No.
This doesn't sound like a David Cage game to me.
Well, it was.
Tell me more.
So I'd first just like to set the tone in saying that I like this game. I had a good time with it. I enjoyed my time playing it. And I think there's a lot of personal reasons as to why I did enjoy it. I wouldn't say objectively this is a well-designed and good game. I just had a good time playing it. Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
A-okay by me.
Yep. And I think that it so, not to dwell on the mechanics, but it is your typical David Cage, like, hold R2, L1, and X to drink milk.
The demo didn't surface a whole lot of that. Like, that was still in there, but the demo made it look like a lot of that had been pretty heavily streamlined.
What was the demo?
The demo was Connor negotiating for the release of the little girl.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, that was probably the most interaction light portion of the game. So I can see why you wouldn't really see that like Heavy Rain-esque. You just cannot eat these
right
grapes
afterwards.
Or whatever.
You wake up, have to walk around your inexplicably spacious home, go pee 4 times, brush your teeth for like 20 minutes.
That's the way you do it.
Everyone is French.
Everybody was still a little French here.
Were they really?
I mean, everybody was
Maybe
a little
they're
bit
French
not
more
native.
More in spirit than in actuality at this point.
Yeah. The performance was not nearly as awful as, your typical David Cage games, and but of course it has its drawbacks there. But I had a great time playing that, and I think really the number one reason why I did was just going in with that like laissez-faire attitude. Speaking of French, it's just like I'm going to play this. I'm going to have whatever story happens while I'm playing it, and I'm not going to dwell on the details. And that entry point for me then really made my playthrough a lot more interesting, because after each chapter you go through, you see like this flow chart of all the decisions that are possible and all the branching paths, and there's boxes that are grayed out based on what you did, and then you can see the world. It reminds me of your VLRs or your 999s, like where it kind of shows you the whole arc, except it doesn't do anything cool with it.
I mean, you don't have to necessarily do something cool with it, but
but it's literally just here's your map, and seeing that map after each playthrough, I was like, oh man, like I feel like I did a good job with this one. Like I got to a longer path than had I not, or I felt like I screwed up really bad here, and you can kind of see this like cluster of choice options that kind of get real meaty and then kind of fill out to one end result, where if you had done something else, maybe you could have gotten to that one point a different way, and kind of just seeing like that behind the curtain was really satisfying for me, and really compelling for me, and really rewarding. So I think the way that it reminds me is like it helps to like tone down and smooth out those edges of like the usual David Cage bullshit, story game as theater kind of experiences, where it's like, nope, at the end of it, this is still a game, and here's the things you could have done or paths that you went down.
Do you think it also helps in the sense that, like, you're like, oh, they actually did work on this a lot. There are a bunch of different options that you could get. It's not all one path.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great...
I had a feeling it was like... It's like, we might as well show them the choices. We worked on them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great... Because that was one of the things that I did really enjoy was... you see that and you're like, oh, there's a fail state here. Or like, oh, I found the furthest path down the line. Or there was a way to actually beef this up and end this thing early.
Yeah.
And speaking of which, I felt like my story was fantastic because I did not see the end of Connor or Kara.
You didn't get to Connor's story?
I didn't end. I didn't get the not the true ending, but the full ending. There was more that I wanted to know about Connor's story, and that's why I think it was really compelling, because I was like, well, you're invested in these three characters, some more than less, and I could care less about either of the other two, and I really was fascinated by Connor and loved his interactions with Hank, and I really wanted to see that keep going. And I didn't. There was a point in which my Connor story was just halted abruptly, and I was like,
by his death, I assume.
I'm not going to say. There, a thing happened, and the story ended. And
did he get the red eye disease? Spoilers.
The what?
The red eye disease from Nier.
Oh, I thought you were saying Cowboy Bebop.
No. That's a different red eye. You got any tomatoes?
What you looking for? His story was fun, and I wanted to play more of it. But then that's where I'm also like, this was my playthrough. I'm not going to go and reload and replay, a story to have it do better. The kind of like the uninterest and distrust of the game for me helped compel me forward and push through things where I'm like, I don't care about you. I'm just going to try and get this to this objective as quickly as possible. And that ended up leading to like actually some surprisingly more interesting interactions with Marcus for me, as a character who is like your most generic, uninteresting thing in the entire game. Your character that hits the most.
He's just Android Jesus, right?
Yes, Jesus Malcolm X.
I can't imagine that's played very well.
It's
on
not.
Either side of the dichotomy.
Nope. And those complaints are all valid. Where it's like, oh, here's the part of the bus the androids stay on, and here's the march where you have all the androids walk with you.
Why would they do the bus?
Yeah,
they did an actual bus.
An actual bus.
They did a bus.
They did a bus.
Oh no! Why would androids take? Oh, I don't even want to talk about it. Why do they need a bus?
I will tell you, one of the best and worst parts of the game's like, ham-fisting narrative to real life commentary was there's this portion of the game where the Madam President is giving a press conference and taking questions from the audience, and you kind of like pan around the audience and pick the questions. Just it's Deus Ex Machina. Like you are not controlling anything there. It's just like, hey, do you want to be the audience asking questions? Okay, go for it. And one of the questions is very poignant, and it's like, Madam President, don't you think that this is eerily familiar to previous things that we've encountered in our history as a nation? And she's like, no, this is completely different.
I mean, I feel like in some ways
we're talking about non-sentient life.
I feel like in some ways the story is probably given a little bit more immediacy by the current state of affairs. So you're like, okay, that's ridiculous, but I can kind of buy that. I mean, nope.
No, I think literally when there's a point in the game where the game is like, somebody wrote, hey, isn't this too on the nose from what things have been like literally happening in the past? And the game's response is, no, it's not. Whatever political climate we're in, like that is just shitty writing.
Well, I mean, I think it's it might be shitty writing, but it's sometimes art imitates life, or life imitates art, as it were.
Yeah.
No, I get it. That's so usual kind of over the top David Cage-esque writing. Heavy themes.
Yes, sure. It is. But there's also like really great small moments, and I think that it's one of those games that is very much worth playing to have the conversation afterwards. I know Hunter and I talked a lot about it because he watched like a couple playthroughs on YouTube, and he was like, well, what'd you do here? And I was like, well, I did this. And he's like, oh wow, that's crazy. And I was like, oh, you saw the end of this thing? And I asked him like, what happened with the end of Kara? And the playthrough he watched also didn't see the potential final ending. So it's really kind of cool to, speaking of secret endings and stuff like that, like it was fun to see that well realized in a David Cage game. Mm-hmm. So if you want to ever take, like a 20-hour vacation, and just kind of, go on an adventure where there's zero stakes and zero compelling content to make you dig deeper into the world, this game is one of those.
Yeah, I feel like you said, those games are best enjoyed, when you go in without an expectation of being moved. You just kind of go in like, okay, I can roll with this if it's cool, but if it's not cool, I can just be goofy. Does it have goofy moments?
I think the goofy moments actually make it more genuine, and there's a very small amount of them that actually happen. They actually
there to be goofy moments.
They feel more human. There's no Jason!
There are a lot. So I watched a playthrough of Heavy Rain recently, and that game is hilarious.
This game is definitely not as clunky and garbagey and goofy as those games. Like the good moments do actually have weight, and like I said, like Connor and Hank are great. I fell in love with that side of the story because of their relationship together. The Kara part, I think there's a lot to be unpacked there, but I never really felt anything by it. And then the Marcus character was very much
it's kind of tepid,
yeah. But I the goofy parts of it were actually like fun moments of levity and not like, haha, you messed up kind of things. The game is doing itself a disservice when it's trying to be more serious and having its like, androids on a bus kind of a thing.
Yeah. So you're saying that the goofy parts are intentionally goofy?
The goofy parts may not be intentionally goofy, but they're more endearing to how humans are in real, or how people are in real life. Not necessarily like we are humans on a stage performing a play.
I don't know, the goofy. I mean, I like. See, part of what I think draws me to those games is I like the jank in a sense. Like it's not art, but it's also like just great. It's the Tommy Wiseau factor. It's like the weirdness just gives it a certain charm.
I'd be fascinated with your opinion on this, Geoff. And I think that if you played through it, I would be really interested in having a discussion with you with that mentality, because with your more like critical eye towards that kind of mentality and game design and stuff like that, like I'd be interested to see how far you could get through it and potentially enjoy it.
I bet you I could get to the end. But I'm the one who wants to play a way out with you, and that's going to be even more goofy.
Yeah, but that one I think that's a goof of a more classic Cage nature.
Yeah, I worry a little bit about the try-hard elements, but I did like that demo. It had a good energy.
Yeah, I think the way to summarize Detroit Become Human is just simply it's accidentally pretty good. It's a B game that is higher than maybe a B game just because of accidents and circumstance.
I love it. I just have one question though. I have an unanswered question about Connor, which is how did they get an actual android to voice him?
Oh my gosh!
You know Jamie knows that guy, right?
No, really?
Yeah, he went to college with him.
Of course he did.
I watched him live streaming the game for like a hot second, and his voice is the same in real life.
It's the same. I've seen some clips, and
it's very creepy.
Yeah, it's perfect. It's perfect casting. Yeah, it's a great performance. I don't know. There's something very endearing about the Connor story in it. I think once again, more accidental than it should actually be.
I just love David Cage taking on police, just because his impression of them is just always so ever so slightly off kilter.
Wait, of police?
Yeah. Or law enforcement in general.
Yes. Yeah. Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
So that's really all I got. Yeah, you should.
Yeah.
If you ever got like a spare couple hours, give it a shot.
For sure.
Do you want to cover one more game here in brief before we sign off?
Sure. Yeah, there is one I wanted to talk about.
We got time.
Yeah, we got there's like a little break in that recording, so. But let's talk about my next game, and we'll see if we have time for the last. But this is one I wanted to hit on because I think it flew under a lot of people's radars. So I checked out West of Loathing. You might have heard of this game, maybe not. It looks very unassuming.
Was it last year?
I think it came out on PC in 2017. I guess it's based off of some kind of, I don't know if it's an MMO or like a shared world experience or something called Kingdom of Loathing. And it's not what you think though. So the entire game is stick figure, white background, black art, very kind of unassuming. Nothing special in terms of the looks. Although it's got a lot of
Jesus
character.
Christ! Okay, I'm looking at pictures of it right now.
Of West of Loathing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the art style is something that put me off for a little while, and I think is going to put a lot of people off, or has put a lot of people off. But, I heard a lot of good things about the game, and the other thing that put me off, I'll say from the beginning, was the fact that it's like kind of a comedy game. And when I hear
it looks like South Park right now.
When I hear that, I think, oh, that's terrible, that's dumb. It's not going to age well. But I gave it a shot because people have been talking about it, and it is really, really good. The basic way that it plays, so it's like an adventure game with some RPG elements. There is combat, although in my playthrough I didn't have any combat. And it's, your character wants to go west, and there's kind of, west in this game. It's not set on Earth. It's like set on some weird, I don't know, in some world where like
the Trigon planet. The Trigon
Sure,
planet.
Trigon planet, exactly.
Yeah.
There's cows, but they're evil. They're cows from hell. Clowns are demons.
Oh, Diablo Trigon, yeah.
Yeah, sure, a lot of weird shit. And your character's going west, and there's lots of kind of trappings of old westerns and things and callbacks and stuff. But, no, okay.
I see Sherf and a horsery.
It's real good. I promise you this.
Okay.
So no. So it's an adventure game, and it's very heavily text driven.
Okay.
But it's really flippin' good. It's just really fun to play. There's lots of skill checks. I love skill checks in my kind of RPG type games. And the ways in which you interact with the world are very much determined by your skills, but the skills are very flexible. So like you can drink and eat stuff to boost your skills, and you can change them around from day to day. And the game is just surprisingly full of experiences, full of like cool shit to do, full of secrets, full of weird kind of dialogue trees and conversation options that can lead to interesting places. It's just really, really good. Like, I started playing it thinking, oh, I don't know what to expect with this. It was immediately hilarious. Like, I was laughing from probably, the, I don't know, first or second screen. It rewards, an eye to detail. It's got that kind of quality. Like, games that are funny and good are hard to come by. Like, Mother is an example of a game that's, like, both funny and good. This is not Mother in feel. Like, it's a little bit more goofy. But you can get engaged in this world, surprisingly enough. Like, it does that thing where it's funny, but you also kind of are interested in the lore. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's funny, but it doesn't throw away its entire kind of story and setting and milieu because of its funniness. Like, it's funny, but it's just a funny world where cool things are happening.
Okay. So kind of like similar to Undertale, but maybe flipped?
Again, it's I mean, Mother and Undertale both have that kind of funny but incredibly heartfelt quality about them. This is funny, but I wouldn't call it heartfelt, but it's a world that you can engage with. Like, it's funny, but not in a way that shoots its own, gameplay and experience in the foot. Like, it's funny, but you can still be part of that world. You can still want to explore more of that world. There are still mysteries. There are still things to uncover.
Am I doing it for the vines?
You're not doing it for the vines. No.
Okay.
You're doing it for the game. You're doing it to play the game. The goals are silly, parts of the game are silly, but it's also just really cool.
Okay.
And it's like a kind of experience that it's very relaxed. Like, it's totally, like I said, it's totally text driven. Like, combat is never forced on you. You can always be like, I'm not ready. It's just something you can just kind of hang out with, play on your Switch, engage in a little bit of, weird, kooky story. And it's just, like I said, I don't know how else to describe it except by just saying it's really fun. There's lots of interesting ways to develop your character. It's just a fun place to be in. And I don't know. It's real good. Go ahead.
Not to put you on the spot or anything or spoil anything, but can you give me one example of like a funny quest that then, or
sure.
I don't know, like a physical or a hard and fast situation that describes what you're saying there?
Sure. So you want one that is both funny but engaging?
Just whatever speaks to you.
Okay. I mean, I can give you a lot of examples. So let me give you an example first of something that's just kind of funny but interesting, but not necessarily engaging, but just kind of funny. So, like, there's an ongoing joke about every town you go to, there's a bar and there's a spittoon in the bar, and you can go through the spittoon, and the game will like remember if you've gone through the spittoons, and each spittoon you find is like more repugnant and nasty than the last one. And, like, the narrator of the game is, like, describing the state of the spittoon and also saying, like, you're disgusting, and the choices you have are always hilarious about how you can go further on that. And then if you keep going through spittoons and, like, against the narrator's advice, you get, like, a special perk that gives you a small boost because you're gross and went through all the spittoons. But in terms of, like, comedy that connects with kind of a larger story, so, like, let me give you an example. So, like, in this world, there are different kind of factions and races. So there's, like, the clowns, which I alluded to, which are actually demonic in nature, that are, like, warring with the cows. So, like, there's a circus you can go to, and the circus is full of jokes about clowns and, like, weird shit going on in there, and just, like, like a freak show tent that's, like, kind of creepy, but also kind of funny, culminating in you going to meet this clown and learning all this information and leading to this lengthy quest line involving, like, like a RPG faction war kind of thing where you can, like, choose a side. And it's all kind of cloaked in this humor around clowns are weird and creepy. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of that. Like, there's these cows, which are, like, creepy, but it's also funny because, like, you fight cow ghosts and you fight, like, tanned leather that's possessed by cow spirits.
On a scale from 1 to 5, how South Park is this game?
Not South Park at all.
Okay, good.
There's no profanity at all.
Well, I'm not saying that, but, like, a lot of, like, referential same jokes, like callbacks, and And like, are clowns weird?
I wouldn't say so. It plays a lot with kind of Western stuff and just kind of makes it kooky, but it definitely isn't. No, it's not like that. It's just entertaining. It's like one of those games that as you play it, you become so absorbed with it that you're not. It doesn't feel like it's trying really hard.
Okay.
It just always feels effortlessly funny. Like it's just you're always having a good time with it. It's never like, oh, this is just stupid. Like this didn't land for me at all. I never like there were moments where I was like, it's not as funny, but never was I like this. I'm offended by this, or this is just gross out and dumb. It's just entertaining all the way through.
So you don't have to fight the man bear pig like 6 times.
Oh God, no. Okay. It's not anything like that. A joke never outlives its welcome. Like it's even the Splatoon thing. There's like 5 in the whole game, and it's a long game.
What you're telling me sounds really interesting. Like from the screenshots I'm pulling up right now, like it looks bad, but everything you're saying is selling me on it. Yeah, and if you got over that hump, then I can as well. So I'm interested.
Just think of it as like a huge adventure game that is rewarding in not quite in the way that adventure games of old were rewarding, but like it's full of items and they all have secondary uses. But you don't have to keep them all. Like you can mainline get through the game and not worry about any of that shit. But if you do keep stuff and you have an unlimited knapsack or whatever, like you can find weird interactions for it. Like stuff that you keep for the beginning of the game might have a use later, or like it's just like a game where you can kind of choose a weird path and then it'll probably pay off in interesting and kooky ways.
Cool.
Yeah. It's real fun, and I wish I could do it more justice in my explanation, but it's one of those games that is like listed as funny and actually is, but is also good on its merits, in like a systems way, and just a world exploration way. So,
and you said you're playing you're playing it on the Switch. Is it available on anything else?
It's available on PC. I think it's fantastic on Switch. I think it'd be great on PC as well, but I love it on that platform. It's a perfect port. I didn't encounter any issues at all. Writing is, again, totally solid throughout. No weird glitches. Just really fun.
Is it point and click or mouse cursor or analog sticks?
So it's not like you have to move a mouse around on the screen. You can just walk around with your character, interact with things with face buttons. The menu, I guess, used to be mouse operated, but they've ported it really well to be cursor operated. So it's all cursor and movement. So it doesn't feel like you're just playing an inferior port. It just feels like a native game that's really fun.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, it's funny because it was actually at PAX, and I totally passed it up because I was like, this looks kind of dumb. I don't care.
Sure.
And it's really good. I was definitely not expecting much, but I left very pleasantly surprised. So, and I think it's like $13, so you should really get it.
Nice. That's not bad. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll do it, or maybe I won't.
You should. It's a very unique experience, but it's something you'll wish you had more of because it's just really good. So,
do you think you have enough time to talk about your last game? Because I would also like to speak about Mario Tennis Aces.
Sure, I'll touch on it real quick. I don't want to spend too long on it, but I just want to say that I've been kind of flirting with Falcom. You know the company Falcom? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they make Trails in the Sky is the one you guys, or that listeners might have heard of. They also make an action game.
I'm sorry, what was that game called?
Trails in the Sky.
What does that abbreviate to?
Oh, tits.
Nice.
Well, speaking of, in the game I played. So that's like an RPG series. People talk a lot about how the storytelling is really good. It's got a lot of good world building. I have Trails in the Sky. I tried it. I didn't get very far. I want to come back to it at some point, but it is somewhat dated. This game, Ys, I think is how it's pronounced. I'm going to say Ys.
You got it. Ys.
Yeah. Ys is a long-running action series. This is the 8th entry. You don't have to have played any of the previous entries, but they all star the same person. The central conceit, he's like an adventurer. He just goes around having adventures. This one...
He's your Zelda. Right?
He's your Zelda. Like, there's even a jingle when you find items that sounds like a Zelda jingle.
Right. For some reason, Oath of Felghana is, like, stuck in my head. That must be an Ys game.
That's one of them. Yep. Okay. There's also Memories of Calcetta or
Celceta, yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to play any of those, and especially for this game, because the game actually opens with you becoming marooned on a desert island.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and the whole game is just you're exploring the island. The island is really cool. It's an action RPG. Lots of cool areas to check out. Some gated progression. The way it works is like you find villagers to return to your castaway village, and there's like a town building element. Each villager has like a job they occupy, stuff like that. There's some base defense you can do in the town and a bunch of other somewhat optional stuff. But then as you find villagers, they gate your progress in the story. So like you need, 12 villagers to clear this wreckage, and they all come and help you clear the wreckage.
I gotcha.
So that's one mode of progression. And then as that's kind of going on, your main character is having these dreams, which you learn are seemingly about the past and about this character in the past. And the game is interesting because it kind of starts out, it's pretty anime, which is neither here nor there, and it doesn't put its best foot forward because literally there's like a scene where the main character encounters like a woman and her towel falls off for some reason.
No.
And you're like, oh, this is awful. And it really feels pretty like, we have to put this in here, so I guess we'll just get it out of the way now.
Yeah.
So
These
that
fans
happens.
will enjoy.
Yeah, exactly. So that happens, and you're like, okay, this is dumb. And it's definitely got some anime-esque nonsense. But the central story about this person from the past and all kinds of interesting shit going down is actually pretty cool. And there's a cool element that I won't spoil too much going on that I just unlocked probably maybe about 30 hours in. It's another meaty game, which involves time travel, sort of. I don't know. It's weird. I don't want to get into it too much, but it's really cool. The act of like exploring and having combat in this world is really fun. It's very simple. It's just like mash the attack button to build up your special meter and then use a variety of different special attacks, which all have kind of different physicality to them. There's like a perfect guard and a perfect dodge system, which are both very rewarding and cool. And it's like a good amount of challenge. So it's pretty fun. I'm having a good time with that. Again, it's just lots of Switch games.
Nice.
Yeah.
When you were describing the mechanics of it, are you familiar with the previous Ys games? Is it similar to those, or is it more complex?
I've never played the previous Ys games. It
Okay.
feels suitably complex. I mean, it's not like a hot mess. You know, like I said, you mash the attack button, and then you can assign specials to your 4 face buttons, and then any game that has a perfect dodge and a perfect guard, so it has both.
Yeah.
Those are both cool.
Sure.
I'm on board for that. Like, it's switch time dodge and perfect guarding boosts your damage and makes you invincible.
Cool.
Yeah, and I'm finding myself using them a lot as I'm getting further in the game. It's taken some weird left turns. Like, it starts off as this kind of very typical, like, you're stranded on a desert island story, and then it just gets very mystical and weird. Yeah, I got to the second half of the island, and shit's pretty weird over there. So
you found the Swan Station?
The Swan Station?
Or was it the Pearl Station?
You're talking about the Archaeosaic Big Hole?
No, I'm talking about Lost.
The bunker or whatever. The underground thing where you have to press a button.
Yep, that one.
Yeah. No, but it's pretty weird.
Okay.
Yeah. It's and there is a joke about a poor translation where one of the locations was originally called Archaeosaic Big Hole. And people made fun of the Big Hole.
Oh, good. That's good that it's self-realized.
Yes. No, but it's been retranslated since then. It was kind of a hot mess when it came out.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a port of a Vita game, but yeah, and in some ways that shows. Like, the graphics are pretty humble. It looks nice enough, but it definitely shows its roots a little bit. Mm-hmm. But it's quite fun. Don't let the fact that it has an 8 after it intimidate you. If you just want to play a fun action RPG that has some good depth, good combat, just is very solid JRPG type game. I really like it. And it does itself a lot of favors by having the whole story be contained on an island. So,
that's cool. That's cool that there's, like, the exploration is limited right to that one landmass.
It is, but they do a good job with biodiversity, and it's not like, you don't feel like you're like, okay, we're going to the ice area now. It actually, like, the island feels cohesive.
Cool.
Like, I just got to the second half of the island, which required overcoming a huge mountain, and that felt like a very... First of all, like, climbing that mountain felt really challenging and rewarding in and of itself, but when you hit the top of the mountain, like, you can see the whole world, and, like,
sweet.
You can see those connections to the world. So it does a really good job of realizing the space.
All right. Well, so of those 3 games, which one should I play?
Fudge. Probably... I don't know.
You only got one.
Well, I'll take East out, because I don't think you'd like it as much. God damn it. Daddy, don't make me choose.
You got to choose.
Fine. I'm going to say West of Loathing, because Hollow Knight has already done well enough.
Okay, what does that mean?
Hollow Knight's had a lot of success.
Like, my contribution to that, buying that game...
I want to get another Evangelist. I mean, Hollow Knight's pretty damn good.
Okay, I get it. But, I mean, isn't that doing a disservice for me?
They're both really good.
Okay.
I don't know how to choose.
All right,
I guess Hollow Knight. Hollow Knight's really long. Hollow Knight is your answer. You get like 50 hours out of that, and they're all really fun.
That you know that I'm just that 2-minute Metroidvania kind of guy, right?
You are that 2-minute. You're one pump chump when it comes to Metroidvania.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
All right. Talk about your thing. I'm all good.
So, yeah, I'll just end here talking about Mario Tennis Aces.
Oh, yeah. I want to hear about that.
Do you not have it? Are you not playing it?
I didn't buy it. I read some kind of...
Good.
Questionable, yeah.
Good choice.
Go on.
I was ready to love this game, and initially playing it, like, falling in love. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a good arcade tennis game that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, those
a lot
mechanics
of goofy...
felt good.
What's that?
Those mechanics felt good in the demo.
Yeah, they feel fine, except the single-player adventure mode gets into some horseshit territories where you're like, it's like, hey, don't just play this person, like, you have to do this incredibly grueling task against the CPU and understand what the CPU is thinking in this fucking tennis game where it doesn't tell you what things are actually functioning as. So I've hit the wall so many times in this game where it's like, hey, just have this rally match against this thing. And I'm like, all right, so I'll rally with you. All right, so this thing is trying to not rally with me, but I have to rally with it. That's bullshit. And they're like, aim your shots. I'm like, okay, well, I can't aim my shots. Or maybe I can. It just, you just don't tell me how I could do that. And
is the challenge like, this thing is going to screw up returning the ball unless you hit it a certain way?
The challenge is like, you have 60 seconds to do, 50 targeted hits on these players. And it's funny, actually, before you mentioned, there's like a cool like boss mechanic and like a fighting. There is a bizarrely interesting like boss mechanic with Mario Tennis Aces where you can, or fighting game mechanic where you can break the other opponent's racket.
You can KO the opponent.
You can, yeah.
Remember when Rafa Nadal was KO'd at the U.S. Open?
My racket's broke.
A day that will live in infamy.
Yeah, it's a really cool mechanic. Except, just like any fighting game, like you can block and parry those things based, using your special meters and skills and whatnot. Yeah, it's very interesting. The problem with it is, the single player does not do any sort of justice to explaining what is actually happening. On a like, this is the kind of thing where it's kind of like Monster Hunter, where you're like, I need to go watch like 30 hours of video to understand what is actually happening here, and as somebody who used to play tennis, it just doesn't work for me. This is an impossible shot that can be taken at this point. Nobody can do this.
The trick shots feel a little unfair.
The trick shots are dumb, but it's fine. Like that's where you're like, this is a game. That's fine. But the standard shots that do not require any sort of like special wind up or momentum or anything, and it's just like, well, this character is a trick character. You're like, okay, well that character could then hit an impossible arc on a shot, and there's no tell. There's no fucking tell. I played
against Rosalina online towards the tail end of that demo, and I was having that experience. I was like, this is awful.
Yes, and I speaking of online, I tried to go online, and I tried to go into standard tournament. No, I just sit there and it's like, oh, your opponent backed up. Oh, your opponent backed out. Oh, your opponent backed out. Oh, your connection was lost.
They've seen your KO record.
I mean, I guess I was playing as Bowser,
Evo
so
moment.
maybe they were scared.
Am I right?
Yeah.
That's too bad. So
But yeah,
online is trash.
It's trash, and I want to play with like you or you know somebody who I you know can actually guarantee a match with.
Yeah.
But it's a bummer because like I think that the adventure, like comparatively to the Mario Tennis game for the Wii U, like this does seem to have all those gaps filled in and a lot more merit to it than the previous game with you know a lot more stuff fleshed out. But on the other hand, it's like, okay, so the online sucks. Playing the actual single player game, though lacking in the first game, still kind of sucks.
Yeah.
And I don't know, like it.
Yeah.
The game is a big old bummer.
That's too bad. It's especially sad because those core mechanics feel really interesting. Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate that they still can't quite seem to nail it. I don't know how much of that is like the weird Nintendo restrictions around how the IP can be used, because you know, like Miyamoto was like, "Hey, you can't do non-Mario stuff in Mario games anymore." Remember that with Paper Mario? They were like, "Yeah, we're only going to do Mario stuff now. We're not going to have any new characters." Well, and Camelot used to do that for they would have weird ass humans playing against Mario, and you're like, "All right, whatever."
I mean, that's fine. The thing that I'm kind of, you know, miffing on is whether it's my lack of skill or my misunderstanding what the game is trying to convey. Because, you know, it's like, I understand how to play a tennis game like this, but then when it subverts it, and I'm like, oh, okay, so you're going to gate my story progression because I don't understand this, but you're not going to tell me why I'm doing poorly. Now I'm very confused and frustrated.
You're not the only person who hated that adventure mode. I read a lot of griping about it being terrible. So
okay.
I would trust your gut on that one.
Okay.
You're good enough. I mean, I don't think you're
I've been soldiering
You're good at fighting games,
it.
dude. I mean, that's like your bread and butter. You can get people in fighting games. So I don't think that's it.
It's not necessarily... I guess there are some fighting game elements to it, but it's more just like...
It's its own
thing. This tennis doesn't work.
I think the problem with it is that it's... The problems I was having online were that it felt like the actual act of volleying the ball was just kind of incidental because you have so many tools in your arsenal that it's really down to managing your meter, which I don't know if I want that exactly for a tennis game, number one. And then number two, some characters just have broken serves and broken returns.
Yes.
Like the returns aren't too bad, but the serves were terrible. Like,
well, I think that might be my initial problem is, like, I am shy of the meters. Like, I want to play a tennis game first. Yeah. So when I prompted, like, I have to actively remind myself that I have these, like, bizarre tools and these meters to keep going. So that'll help me get through some of the adventure mode things. Be like, all right, just abuse this thing, even though it doesn't make any sense.
But that seems to be what they want you to be doing in the game.
Yeah.
Like, the people who I played against who were good were like, it's just a battle of meter. Like, it has nothing... Because you can return the ball from anywhere. You can trick shot, like, halfway across the court, no problem.
Yep. If you can predict where it's going, and there's no tells, because anybody can hit anything anywhere.
Yeah, well, that's the other problem. It's like, you have so many options that it's like... Again, I think pro-level play is just return, or volley, trick shot. Or not trick shot, I mean, meter. You know, meter when the other person's meter is empty. Like, that's the game.
Yeah. If you get really skillful at it, you're essentially just
God
burning meter.
You can't be stopped.
Well, you're just reacting and burning meter, and it's all meter, like you said, meter management.
Yeah.
There is a mode you can play online where you essentially don't have meter, and it's just like a classic tennis kind of style. So I'm going to give that shot. I'm going to give that a shot before I set it on its merry way, and see if I can get it in a game there. But it's a real disappointment.
Hey, you want to feel better about the gameplay? Just do drop shots against people online. They will miss them 80% of the time.
Is that the trick? Huh?
That's the trick. Nobody knows how to do a drop shot.
Oh, interesting.
They just run back and they're like, "Oh no, it didn't go anywhere." Every time.
Oh boy! All right, I'll keep that in mind. Pro strats.
That's the pro strats since the Nintendo 64 game. It always works, man. Yeah, I got the vibe. Like, it was one of those games where I was having a lot of fun with the demo, but I was like, there are a few red flags here that prevent this from reaching greatness, or that could make it not quite what I want it to be. And then to hear the adventure mode sucked and there's other usual Nintendo-esque issues is a big bummer.
Mm-hmm.
But what are you gonna do? They'll probably make another one. I think it sold pretty well, so they'll keep going.
I think it might have. I think there was a lot of praise for it, which is, unfortunate.
I think it did okay. I think it got in the 70s on Metacritic. So nothing too great. I'll check, but I don't think it was anything superlative.
Yeah.
But
well, that's all I got to say on that one. Thanks for letting me close that out. Do you have anything else you want to cover in the last few minutes here?
No, I think we're good. Keep it lean.
Hell yeah. Lean and mean.
Liking these little hour and change podcasts.
Let's do it. Let's keep it up.
Awesome.
Let's go for 5 this year.
No, don't talk crazy.
All right, man. So this has been good. This has been Boss Brow Radio, and I've been Griff Hoffmann, and you've been Geoff Brewer.
I have been.
Still are.
That's questionable.
Yes.
All right, dude.
You've become the tennis racket.
I have a small itch, but Octopath is coming soon. That's what
I hear that 100%.
Yeah,
that's why I'm going to give West of Loathing a shot here before that comes out.
All right, I will catch you hopefully soon.
Absolutely. We'll see you next time.
I do not know.